The NFL's misunderstood debate, run versus pass. 32 teams, one season of data. The results are clear, but the conventional wisdom about what they mean is almost entirely backwards. Teams that run more do win more. The reason why it changes everything. Thanks for listening to Net Wins, which can be accessed at netwins.substack.com. Every NFL offseason produces the same conversation: run the ball to win or throw the ball to win. Coaches talk about establishing the run. Analytics departments preach pass efficiency. Fans argue about whether the team's 4.2 yards per carry is what's really driving the offense. So we took a look at the 2025 NFL season data to answer the question directly, but it immediately became complicated. The league averages last year were 32.1 pass attempts per game, 26.8 rush attempts per game. Teams ran on 45.6% of their plays. So those numbers how do they correlate with wins when you line them up? Rushing attempts per game had a 0.575 correlation with wins. Rushing share of plays, 0.365. Pass attempts per game was a negative correlation. Yards per carry was just about nothing at 0.095, but net yards per pass attempt had a much higher correlation of 68.8. The run-heavy teams win more, the pass-heavy teams didn't. Yards per carry has almost no relationship with winning, and the single variable most closely tied to winning isn't run or pass volume, it's how efficiently a team passes when it does throw. So the teams that rushed for, I broke it down into 4 quartiles. The bottom 25% average 5.6 wins. The second quartile of 23.2 to 26.6 rushes a game was 8.6. The third quartile was at 9.3 average wins, and the top 25%, where teams averaged 29.8 rushes per game or more, had 10.7 average wins. So there were 5 wins separating the most run-heavy teams from the least. That's the difference between a playoff appearance and a top 5 pick. Feel free to share this. And once again, I'm located at netwins.substack.com. So why the conventional wisdom is wrong about what this means? Here's where the analysis has to be honest about causality. Teams that are winning run more because they're already winning. When a team has a lead in the fourth quarter, it runs the ball to drain the clock. When a team's trailing by 14 in the fourth quarter, it has no chance but to throw, which is why losing teams accumulate high pass attempt totals and low rushing attempt totals. The correlation between rushing and winning is real. The direction of causality is backwards from what coaches usually imply. And we just went over that. And there's a companion chart with this article at netwins.substack.com. So rushing efficiency, which has almost no relationship with winning, is the evidence. If running caused winning, efficient running should correlate with winning, and it doesn't. What correlates with winning is rushing volume, and volume is dictated by game situation, not a team's philosophical commitment to the run. This matters because establish the run as a strategy that says volume causes winning. The data says volume reflects winning. They're different. So the actual signal is net yards per pass attempt, which is passing yards minus sack yards divided by total pass plays, including sacks. So the net yards per pass attempt explains 77.5% of the variation in points scored across all 32 NFL teams. It is by a wide margin the strongest single variable in the data set. Every point that net yards per attempt goes up translates to roughly 2.9 additional wins across the season. The spread between the league's best last year, New England at 7.7 net yards per attempt, and the worst, the Jets at 4.3, is 3.4 points, a projected gap of 9.7 wins. New England won 14 games, the Jets won 3. The formula explains nearly the entire difference. So what happens at the extremes? Well, teams that have a more than 7 net yard per attempt average in passing efficiency were the Patriots, the Seahawks, the Rams, and the Packers, who won 14, 14, 12, and 10 games. Teams that had poor passing efficiency, below 5, were the Jets, the Titans, the Browns, and the Raiders, who each won 3 games. Every team with a net yard average below 5 won 3, or 5 games. The Browns won 5 games, so it was the Jets, Titans, and Raiders with 3, and the Browns with 5. Every team with above 7 won 10 or more. The Raiders ran the ball the least of any team with a poor net yard per attempt and still went 3 and 14. The Jets ran more than the Titans, Browns, and Raiders and still went 3 and 14. Running volume didn't save any of them. The Jets were the only team where the yards per carry exceeded the net yards per pass attempt. Every other franchise generated more value from passing than rushing on a per play basis universally across all 32 teams, regardless of coaching philosophy or roster construction. The Jets went 3 and 14, which is not a coincidence. When passing is less efficient than running, a team's offense is broken down at its most fundamental level. The Jets situation isn't evidence that running is better than passing. It's evidence of how catastrophically bad their passing game was. So dysfunctional that their mediocre running game was actually more productive. Is there an optimal mix? Well, once you control net yards per attempt statistically, run share adds almost nothing to win prediction, as we stated at the beginning of the podcast. The mix doesn't matter independently of efficiency. But here's the wrinkle among the 4 teams who had a net yard average greater than 7. There's a pattern. New England with 50% run share, Seattle 51% run share, run much more than the Rams did at 44%. The teams with elite passing efficiency who also run heavily win the most. This is almost certainly a game theory effect. A team that passes at 7.7 net yard average rate but runs on only 35% of the plays is giving the defense permission to commit fully to coverage. A team that passes at 7.7 net yard average and runs 29 times per game forces the defense to respect both. The running game doesn't generate wins directly. It generates defensive uncertainty that preserves the passing efficiency advantage. New England and Seattle have figured this out. Their run games aren't good because they're committed to running. They're good because running well keeps defenses from teeing off on Drake May and Sam Darnold. What about elite receivers? If net yard average is everything, the next question is whether teams should just simply go out and acquire the best receivers available, an A.J. Brown type to maximize it. The data is skeptical. Team-level receiver quality measured by a composite net production metric against all qualifying targets correlated with net yards per attempt at only 0.344 and with wins at 0.301, neither particularly strong. So the Cowboys, who have CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens, probably the strongest receiving group in the NFL by the metric, went 7 and 9. Buffalo, with arguably the worst group of receivers among playoff caliber teams, went 12 and 5. New England's top receiver net score, which is in another article that we did previously at netwins.substack.com, was 327, roughly equivalent to a quality number 2 receiver, and New England posted the best net yard average in the league. Net yards per attempt is primarily a quarterback metric. It measures completion percentage, air yards, accuracy under pressure, and turnover avoidance, all of which are driven far more by QB decision-making than by whether the team spent a first-round pick on a receiver. Great receivers help, but elite quarterbacks elevate average receivers, examples being New England, Buffalo, and Green Bay. Elite receivers cannot compensate for poor quarterback play, like Arizona, Tennessee, and Cincinnati all had above average receiver production and combined for 12 wins. And the third point being the marginal return on upgrading from a good to elite receiver core is smaller than the return on upgrading from mediocre to a competent quarterback. The optimization hierarchy, as the data suggests, is start with quarterback quality, then offensive line to protect the quarterback and enable the run threat, then scheme and usage, then receiver quality. Receivers are real and they matter, but they're probably fourth in that hierarchy. So, what should teams actually do? Well, don't try to establish the run. Run volume follows winning, it doesn't create it. Teams that commit philosophically to running first, passing second, are optimizing around the wrong variable. Teams should maximize net yards per attempt above all else. This means investing in the quarterback position first, the offensive line second, and scheme that produces clean dropbacks and quick decisions. Every point of net yards per attempt is roughly 3 wins. Once you have passing efficiency, run enough to keep the defense honest. The elite teams last year weren't choosing between running and passing. They were doing both well enough that defenses couldn't commit fully to either. 28 to 30 rushing attempts per game at league average efficiency appears to be enough to generate the defensive uncertainty that preserves the passing advantage. And don't build around receivers before you have a quarterback. Dallas proves the point most sharply. The Cowboys have the most talented receiving corps in the league, a multi-time Pro Bowl quarterback in Dak Prescott, and went 7-9. New England has adequate receivers and Drake May and the best record in football. If receiver quality were the primary driver of wins, Dallas should be near the top of both tables. That's not which suggests the marginal return on elite receivers, even alongside a quality quarterback, is smaller than the optimization model implies. Scheme health and offensive line quality all appear to matter more than the receiving corps in isolation. The run-pass debate's always been framed as a philosophical question of identity. The data reframes it as an optimization problem, and the optimal solution isn't run more or pass more, it's pass better. All the analysis and written content are original works. All rights are reserved. Located at netwins.substack.com. I appreciate your time. Thank you.